Hey, what's up, friends? This is Joe Rodriguez from El Tri Online, the ETO Podcast. And I wanted to share this with you because for me, it's been a game changer. Anchor has been the easiest way to make a podcast. They give us everything we need in one place, and the best part is that it's for free. You can use your computer or you can do things right from your phone. They give you all the tools that allow you to create, record, edit your podcast so it can sound amazing. They'll distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard everywhere, including places like Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and many other places. You can easily make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. Isn't that incredible? Now, what do you got to do? Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Hey, what is up, guys? Welcome back to El Tri Online Podcast, the ETO Podcast. Once again, here with you guys, it is me, Luis P., joined today, as always, by Joe El Jefe Rodriguez from Bristol, Connecticut. How you doing, Joe?
Hey, what's up, dude? How's it going, man? I'm doing very good. Thanks for asking.
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. Can't complain. Ready to get this new podcast going. And as always, also, we are here with a guy we tried to get trending last week. It didn't happen. But how you doing, Super?
What's up, guys? Come on, man. My Chivas didn't, they lost. They were being humiliated by Leon. So that was kind of like a hard week for me. It was a tough weekend for me.
Actually, now that
I thought we were gonna, do a lot better than what we did. So,
I think we all did from the way they were playing earlier. But that actually brings me to the first point we wanted to touch up on. Anything that stood out to you guys other than the Chivas game in this past week of La Liga? Joe, start with you.
I think the to me probably the biggest thing is how at the end of the weekend Querétaro was in first place. That's probably like the biggest surprise for me. If you look at the record, I mean, it's kind of surprising. I don't think a lot of people expect the Querétaro to be at the top after 5 weeks in the books. So, right from the get-go, like that's probably like the most surprising thing for me.
Yeah, that is surprising. I don't think anybody expected that, especially from Querétaro. I think most people had the typical contenders up there as to who was going to be up top. What about you, Super? Anything surprise you so far from this past week?
Well, I agree with Joe. I mean, Querétaro being in first place, not that it surprised me because they have Bucetich as their coach, and he's been the coach. Not this is not the first time him being the coach. So, and last time he did good too. That was when Ronaldinho also was playing for Querétaro, right? If you guys can remember that.
Yeah. Oh, you mean this is his second time with Querétaro? That's what you're saying.
Yeah. So
okay, because I thought for a second you were talking about this is not supposed to teach his first time as a coach. I'm like, yeah, that guy's been the coach of every single team. It seems like.
I know, but this is his second term here with Querétaro, and he always. I mean, that's why they call him El Rey Midas. That's what they say. Everything he touches turns into gold, man. So.
Except la selección.
Well, come on, man.
Let's not get started on that one.
You cannot judge him over La Selección. They gave him 2 games. That was like a really slap on the face that what they did to him on the Selección. So, we cannot judge him for 2 games. I'm pretty sure if they would have let him, have the team for a while and, give him at least some respect, because what they did with him, that was awful.
Well, I'm just saying, you said everything he touches. He touched la selección, and that didn't turn into goal. So. But anyway, go on, Super. Go on.
I think.
No, but yeah, it does not surprise me. I think he always puts a good team together, and good for them. It's Querétaro is been around for a long time also, so it's good that someone else can be a protagonista, you know.
Yeah, I
Fair
think
enough. Fair enough.
that's definitely one of the things that, like I said, stood out and to everybody. Well, one of the things that stood out to me was I had to refresh my phone a couple of times when I was checking scores. Was the fact that Necaxa beat Santos 3-0. Santos team that was looking like they were gonna cruise through La Liga until up until the playoffs. They just got walloped by a Necaxa team who wasn't on anybody's map or wasn't really doing anything special. Did you guys happen to catch that game or any of those highlights?
Well, for Necaxa, if you really stop and think about it, it also shouldn't be super shocking because remember they ended up scoring what was it 7 goals against in the last game in the last week, right?
Yeah,
They
against
ended up getting
Veracruz.
7 goals
That
against.
was
I know I
versus
know it was against Veracruz.
Veracruz.
I understand that, but it's still 7 goals, so that's still like a display of offensive, offensive power. And again, Veracruz may not be the best team, but their goalkeeper Sebastián Jurado is also a pretty decent goalkeeper, you know.
Yeah.
So was I shocked that they ended up beating Santos like that? I was because, to be perfectly honest, Santos is a team that has impressed so much this season so far. And then for Veracruz, for Necaxa to dominate them the way they did, I mean, it shows that maybe they're one of the sleeper teams that could potentially contend for the title.
Well, I don't know
Yes.
about that, but that was impressive what they did. I don't know if they can be a contender for the title, man. I mean, that's
Yeah,
just
I
my
mean,
opinion.
the win,
I
I
think
Super
think
it
just
was
being a hater.
it was impressive.
I think it was a lucky shot, man.
More like three.
Okay, 3 shots. There you
Exactly.
Well,
go.
actually,
But I mean,
yeah, go ahead, Super.
it, the game. I mean, I think it was pretty even. I mean, they Santos had a little bit more possession of the ball than uh than Necaxa and more shots on goal. So that's I don't know. It was just a bad night for them. I think they were doing things so good and maybe it was over confident. They were overconfident that they yeah, I don't know. Maybe they just underestimated Necaxa.
I think
So
that's more of what happened, where like Joe mentioned earlier, where even though Necaxa was coming off scoring 7 goals against Veracruz, they probably still thought, I mean, it's Veracruz. We're not going to make the same mistakes they are. We're not going to get seven. But still, in those counterattacks and the way they were set up, the game plan was set up, they actually exposed Santos a little bit, and they got three on them. So that's going to be interesting going forward. See how Santos bounces back from that defeat, and see if what Joe said is true. If they're maybe a sleeper team, or if it's just a little 2-3 game streak that they get on, and then they drop. So it's gonna be interesting to see how they go moving forward.
And
On that,
Santos is going to be. I'm sorry, and Necaxa. Sorry before I cut you off.
oh, it's all right.
Necaxa is going to be playing Chivas too this weekend. You know, so who knows? Maybe there's a chance for them to get another victory right there.
Well, actually,
come
now,
on, Joe, you gotta have a little more confidence in your team, man. Come on.
now that you
And
now
one
that you
thing
bring
though,
up Guadalajara,
hold on.
yeah, go ahead, Super.
One thing before we go into another subject. Santos. I know they won the four games, right? 4 games in a row.
Yeah,
But they didn't really beat anyone. They beat Atlas, Juarez. I know they beat Chivas on the first game, but
anyone.
they haven't really they haven't really beat anyone, man. They gotta play against the better teams, and then we'll judge Santos. I think that little streak that they had there, it was just an espejismo. It was just something that like I said, it was the teams that they were playing against. That's why they got the results they got.
Well, like I said, we'll see. We'll see moving forward if they could bounce back and see if it wasn't just an espejismo, if it's actually a legit team, or if it was. One of the things you were talking about, two teams that they beat, two teams near and dear. Well, one to me, the other to you two, is something that I actually wanted to talk about. What is going on with the Guadalajara teams? You two guys, as Chivas fans, um, know the struggles that you guys have been through. Myself, as an Atlas fan, uh, it was just an embarrassing weekend for both our teams. You think there's really trouble in Guadalajara regarding both those teams, or is it just an overreaction way too early in the season to tell? What do you think, Super?
Well, I think Chivas play
You're
against
disappearing, Super.
Chivas played the team that played the best last season, so we knew it was gonna be a tough game. I mean, they made some really bad mistakes on the defense, and also like I think some of the ref calls were they were crazy. I mean, he went 5 times to check the VAR. It
Yeah,
was it
it
was
was horrible.
Yes, it was horrible. And then he judged like I thought that rule was that every handball on the box it's a PK now. The first play that he went to check, it was a handball, but he didn't call it a PK. And then the
Yeah.
next play that he gave the PK to Leon on the same kind of thing. It was a handball, but it was I think it was just like a bad he was just kind of like an accident. So, but I don't know. It was just his judgment
Well,
that
I
I don't
remember, I
agree with.
remember, I remember when they were doing that. So apparently, the interpretation was that when they didn't call the PK in favor of Chivas was because the player was diving and he, I mean, because the play wasn't exactly the same. The defender from Leon actually was diving, but he had his hand close to him. Even though it did touch him, it said as though like his movement was a natural movement, and that's like how they dictate. So yeah, I know that there's some confusion with that rule because that new rule is not in effect yet. It's supposed to be a rule that regardless of whether your hand is close to you or not, if like the ball touches your hand, is a penalty. But then it doesn't make sense if you think about it because then a player could like try to kick the ball to your hand and that's a penalty. You know. So
Yeah,
that's why, like, that rule is not going to work out like the way that we're interpreting it. So, overall, like, I didn't think that that was a penalty. In my opinion, that was the right call when they reviewed the penalty that they didn't give Chivas. But then also the other one shouldn't have been a penalty. You know what I mean? So there
yeah.
was definitely inconsistency. And there was way, like, the VAR is like just getting so out of hand. But anyway, that's not even the point. We're talking about Chivas here. We're talking about Atlas. At least Atlas is a little bit ahead in the standings, and you guys already have 3 wins. Chivas, they have like 2 wins. They're already kind of like below the bottom of side of the table. And going back to this game, um, the 4-3 result, and I pointed this out in the article. The 4-3 result doesn't show justice of how dominant León was over Chivas. Chivas should have lost that game 6-2, in my opinion. Super might not agree with me, but when I watched that game, I was thinking, man, Chivas is lucky that they are not getting their asses handed to them even worse. But a 4-3 result does not show how bad Chivas played that game.
Honestly, for as much as you guys have in common with both being Chivas fans, both being Mexico fans, I don't think I've ever met two people who disagree more than you and Supe. Uh, when it comes to most things we talk about. But just a quick note off of what you said, Joe, and to play maybe devil's advocate a little bit to what Super was saying. Maybe the VAR did have bad results to the Chivas this past weekend, but isn't it a bit justified considering the fact that in the past few games, many have thought that the VAR has benefited Chivas throughout the league so far?
Yeah, I mean, that's a fair point. I think even before the VAR, historically, a lot of people would say and argue that the referees favor Chivas, and not just them, but also like all the major teams, in Liga MX.
Yeah.
So whether it's Chivas or America or Cruz Azul, Pumas, what have you, the top teams typically do get a little bit of aid from the ref. But the thing is that the VAR's sole purpose is to make sure that things are inconclusive. But we're really not getting that. You know, we're not getting inconclusive results. There's still judgment calls, and the criteria on the exact same play is different from different refs. So I think that's what's driving me crazy about the bar. You know, regardless of whether it's in favor of Chivas or not. And even when it has been in favor of Chivas, I'm like, damn, you know, that was like that was a really questionable call. You know,
Yeah.
so
And I go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, go ahead. I mean, I can go on and rant about the VAR on and on and on, but the reality is, like I said, that, you know, at the end of the day, even though we're still getting these reviews, it's still being reviewed by humans, and humans can still commit errors.
No, yeah, and I think Luis, you hit the nail on the head, man. I think there was a lot of talk about Chivas being benefited by all these calls. That I think there was a lot of pressure for them not to do it this game, and I think obviously they went in favor of Leon this time. So but I don't necessarily disagree with it. I like the bar because it has done a couple of good things. Like when a couple of refs gave red cards to players that didn't deserve them, or vice versa, it has been implemented that way. So when you look
Oh
at
yeah,
it that
no, but
way,
it's done a good job. It's done a
I
good
like.
job, Super. I wouldn't argue that.
Yeah,
You know, because even
yeah.
even with that fourth goal by Moreno from Leon that they called offside, remember? You
Oh
know,
yes, yes,
that was a clear goal. You know,
yeah.
but if it would have been for the VAR, then that guy would have been asked out on a goal. You know,
But
and
but I
that
did
wasn't a
see I did see an angle like on the replay that it was to me it was kind of like the view that the referee had, and that's
dude.
why he called the
That was
offside.
not an offside by a
No, no,
mile,
no,
man.
no, no, no. That's what I'm saying. An angle, one of the angles that the camera had, the first angle that they showed. That's why even the commentator guy said, "Oh yeah, you know what? I think it was an offside," and I think it was the same angle that the referee had, the sideline guy. So I think that's why he called the offside. But like you said, it was reviewed and it was a legitimate goal. So it's I guess it's a good thing when it comes to that.
It is. It is. At the end of the, I can agree with you on that. You know, at least yes, it was a bad call by human, but then the VAR came and fixed it.
Yeah, the thing is sometimes the play is so fast that we cannot expect like the we're humans. We don't have like that supervision that it's like boom. Like it was so fast that as you you could change your angle in 1 second, and then you will see. You can't really see sometimes. Exactly what happened. It's like, but with the replay, I think it's great to have it.
See, Chivas is playing so bad right now, though, that even the VAR is not going to be able to save them. You know, they just need to get their act together. They need to get, they need to become more consistent. You know, having a couple of wins was good for them. You know, after they beat San Luis 3-0, everybody was like, Chivas is back. Oh yeah, it's back where? Back to another defeat. It's like they need to build more and more and more consistency. You know, that's the
But
reality.
yeah, but I think they're doing a lot better than they have been, in the past, and I think that they're going on a good path. This game, like I said, the Leon was the best team in the league last season. So and they still have the same team. So once again, like I said for the other subject, we cannot judge them on this one game. I think they're doing all right, and they got close. Even though people like criticize Leon for like kind of like taking it, getting comfortable after that 4-1. I think that Chivas scored those two extra goals, and they put a lot of effort in it, so they got close. So I think they're doing all
Yeah,
right.
but
Actually, one of the things you said,
go ahead.
Super, is one of those things that I kind of wanted to talk about, and especially with these two teams. Like you said, Joe, Atlas is in a pretty good position. They're still seventh place in the table, but just the way they played at home on an anniversary against Cruz Azul left a lot of questions, especially the way they've been winning. Like me personally, as an Atlas fan, um, can't say I'm disappointed because I'm kind of used to it. But the fact that there was so much hype about a new ownership group, they looked like they started doing things the right way. Kind of similar to what happened with Chivas. You know, they got a new general director in there as well, hyping it up, making changes, things like that. Do you think it was the right choice for both teams in this case to stay with a coach that kind of struggled at the end of last year on an interim basis? The case of Cufre for Atlas and the case of Tomás Boy for Chivas?
Well, I feel that Tomás Boy has a little jerarquía, you know, and I think that's why they decided to kind of stick with him. You know, he's a well-known coach. He has a decent reputation, and it felt as though it would have been a slap in the face if they would have just like not given him the full opportunity. Is it a waste? I don't think so, because I think overall he is a good coach, and he definitely does need the time. Now, what we have to wait and see is like how much time does he get? You know, is it going to be just another wasted season? It could be, but then even if they bring somebody else right now and have to like start from scratch, is that a smart idea or a smart move? I don't think so. You know, and the same thing could be said with Atlas. You know, you have to give coaches the time. And it's funny because I got to go back to Bucetich, and you know, Super did make a good point. He didn't allow him to give his Midas touch because 2 games doesn't prove anything. That is the reality. You know, so coaches need their time with the players because they need the time with the practices. They need to, you know, make sure that they infiltrate their system, their ideology, you know. And from the players that I've known, you know, the professional players or ex-players that I've met, you know, when I've talked to them, they told me that, you know, when a new coach comes in, it takes at least 6 games before they feel like they're on like some decent track. So imagine that, at least 6 games, and that's including training and all that stuff. So,
Yeah,
I mean,
it definitely has to take time for them to adjust to a new system and stuff like that. So you have to give them time. You know, it's just how things work best. You know, with time in practice. So if
Yeah, I
you
mean,
just give them 2 games, 3 games, it just it doesn't make sense to it's kind of like a you know stupid to do that. You don't even you can't even learn their names with 3 games.
no.
Yeah, I get what both of you guys are saying. And like you said, I think the key word in this case is time. Unfortunately for both our teams, that might not be a luxury we have, considering the fact that we're both really low on the tabla del descenso.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's kind of why the fact that both teams aren't rolling as expected, kind of. I mean, I already saw on some of the web pages I follow where people are already calling for Cufre to be fired, and it's just because of the way the team's playing. Do you guys feel that way too? Like, what would be a good cutoff where the directiva can bring these guys in and say, "Hey, look, we gave you this much, it's not working. We have to move on," or do you want to see them stick around for at least the whole season, even if the ship's sinking?
I think you have to give them the whole season. I mean, it's I don't like it's Atlas has 3 games won, 2 lost. Okay, so it's not that bad. They have nine points right now. Chivas has 7 points. So we're not. I think you can start like really judging them by like half of the season. Because then they played enough to kind of like say either you're doing good or you need to work on it or you gotta go. But ideally for me, you have to give them a full season for them to.
Yeah, I agree with Super. I think that ultimately you have to give a coach, pretty much the entire season. I mean, you gave them a contract, you gave them money, you might as well keep them, because it's really difficult to be changing coaches mid-season. I mean, you have had some exceptions where like a new coach comes in and like, they end up like making miracles. But it's rare. It's even rare, like, for that to happen. Who was the first coach to get fired? Chelis, right?
Chelis
Yeah,
got fired.
Chelis is out.
So he's out. He's the first coach. So that's 5 weeks. So that means that there's what, like another 17? No, not 17. Like bad with my math.
Well,
16,
uh,
15, 14,
13,
14,
13 because it's
13.
16 weeks now.
Okay,
Yep.
yeah, there you go. So 13 more weeks. Like, could a new coach come in and do something with them? It's possible, but I mean, I can imagine that it's going to take time. And then typically, like when a new coach comes in and then they have a good result, they're like, oh, they get all pumped up and excited, and even that enthusiasm dies also like within a few weeks. My point is
Yeah,
that it's tough. It's tough.
I think it's very give or take because I mean I think other than Chelis getting fired this season, the last big example we had was last season with Leon. What was it? Was it week 2 or 3 that they made the change? New
Hmm.
coach came in, and then they rode that wave all the way to the final, basically, with just a few changes he made to the lineup. Um,
Yeah.
so I mean, I guess it could go either way in this case. It's uh, that's why the suits
Yeah, they
get
had a
paid
monstrous
the
win
money they
streak.
do.
Yeah. Yeah, when Ambris took charge last year, yeah, he took them on the 11, 12 game win streak. It was like something ridiculous, and
12,
Yeah.
12. Yeah.
yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy. So, but yeah, it certainly could happen. But I mean, like, is that really the coach, or is that just the players that maybe didn't like the coach as much? I don't know. Like, who do you get? See, the thing is that it's typically when the team is doing bad, you typically blame the players, right? I mean, the coach. Sorry. And when the team is doing great, you typically say, "Oh, it's because of the players." The coaches don't get a lot of credit, man. That's in my opinion. It's really rare to see coaches out there to go like, "Man, like no matter what team you give this coach, at the end of the day, he's gonna be a badass coach." And typically, the coaches, even the coaches that we see in Europe, like the Jose Mourinho's of the world, right? They're great coaches, but they're also constantly surrounded by great players. You know, and we can even dive a little bit more in basketball. A lot of people told Phil said that Phil Jackson, the only reason why he was great was because he had Jordan, and then he had Kobe and Shaq. Um, but Popovich, he's the one that you can probably say like, damn, that guy's just a good coach, period, because he has no one, and he's still an amazing coach. Like, I don't think we have coaches like that in soccer. I mean, who would be the equivalent of Popovich in soccer?
Well, you got Tuca
No, but
Ferretti, man.
Tuca has great players around him too, dude.
Oh yeah, and yeah, I guess
It's hard.
Vucetic,
You know what I mean?
Vucetic right there. Vucetic is good example of that. He doesn't have the best players, and look where he's at. And he's
That's
done that
true.
like in every team he takes. So it's not new for him to do this kind of things.
No, that's a good. Yeah. I can see Vucetic slash Popovich.
And and I guess now if you want to call it Breeze, I mean he has a decent team, but you know it was like nobody was expecting that, because Mena
Yeah,
had already played for Cruz Azul, and he really didn't do much,
right.
over there in Cruz Azul. So
Well, from coaches and winning, let's go to switch over to Super's incredible losing streak at the Quinela. How did you do this week, Super?
hey, you guys jinxed me, man. It's you guys were all over me last week that my game just went out of whack, man.
I mean, Super,
I
you
had
want to
10
blame us,
points.
but you were the
Yeah,
one
10
that was
points.
talking a big game,
Yeah.
man. Like, we literally said nothing for about 3-4 minutes when you went off on how great you were, man.
Wow. So what'd you finish like in the bottom 10%?
Yes, I have to bounce back this week. So
Wow.
I think
Hey,
Super
well,
is real low on the porcentual as well right now. He might not
yeah,
even
we
make it
should
for
start.
next year's Quinela.
We should start like doing a Quinella relegation table, right? That if you don't get X amount of points, then you're gonna get relegated. Um, so no,
shit.
the Quinella for the second consecutive week ended up getting it tied. It was a pretty good week overall because the top two players, El Twin 11, who's been a participant for a while, and Isra Garza, who actually ended up winning week number two Quinela, ended up tying at 41 points each. Unlike the week before, which we had, what was it, 54 points or something like that?
Yeah,
Last week was
54 points.
crazy. Yeah, last week was crazy because two players ended up getting every single game or every single outcome, correct.
Yeah.
And in addition, getting a couple of correct scores as well. But anyway, that being said, nobody won the Quinela this week, so we've been having obviously the internal discussion of figuring out like what the best way to go about it. And I think this is going to be the last week that we have 3 weeks accumulated as far as the price goes. So this weekend, we're going to have 3 prizes available for the winner. And if we do end up getting a draw, then what we're going to end up doing actually is we're going to draw or we're going to like do the how do you call that? The tiebreaker. We're going to do it on the podcast. That's where we're going to do it. So how
All
about that?
right.
How do you guys
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that,
we
huh?
got that. Sounds good, man. Don't
So
worry,
we'll
man.
do it
Don't.
on the
I won't
podcast.
let it happen this week, though. I'll just make sure I win this week, and you don't have to
Oh, dear
worry.
God.
There you go. So Super wins. Then people are going to say that he cheated and that we cheated. So hopefully Super doesn't win. But yeah, and it's been
No, I
crazy.
don't. I don't
And
think you have to. Hopefully, on that one, Joe. I think it's gonna happen. You don't have to worry about Super.
yeah, I don't think anybody has to worry about him. But in the regular season standings, it looks like Agoseg took the standalone lead. I have no idea who Agoseg is. Anybody know who Agoseg is? Is that your
Yeah,
cousin, Super?
I know. No, I know her. It's one of my friends and his
One of your
wife.
friends? I have a feeling that
From
somebody's tipping this person. Is it a girl?
Yes, man. I'm gonna
It's
have
a
to
girl.
I'm gonna have to interview her and post it on the on our sites. So you
Yeah,
We
we're
know.
might
gonna have
have
to.
to. We
We're
might
gonna
have
have
to bring
to.
her on next week and one to prove that it's a real person and it's not just you, Super,
Yes,
using a burner account, and two,
exactly.
to see if she's willing to share some
Some
tips
secrets, yeah. So
and
yeah,
see
there you go.
how the quinela's going for her because yeah,
Yeah, and you know
winning one
what?
week is all right, but top of the whole thing so far is it's kind of weird is
And
a
you know
good
what?
feat,
And you know
quite
what?
a feat.
Actually, the plan is midway through the season, as I mentioned this in the past, when we announce what the grand prize is going to be, we're actually gonna invite some of the Quinela participants from the leaderboard to come out and just talk to us about their tips. Um, so I'll go say if she's still on the top of that leaderboard, then we'll definitely invite her on the show, on the podcast, so she can talk to us and give us a few tips. But anyway, we did post on social media. We posted a survey to see what people thought was the best way to go about it, and it appears as though slightly, not by a landslide, but slightly, it's the tiebreaker that's a preferential thing for most people. I guess people want to see
That's
a winner every week. I personally don't like that. I like the fact that we can make the pot grow a little bit larger. I'm all about the super lotto idea or the lottery idea, but apparently most people want to see a winner. But the funny thing
yeah.
is that it was only the people that have tied that ended up voting for that, but everybody else is like voting against. No, let's keep the pot growing.
That's what I tell you, man. Of course, the people that are they're tying every week, they're gonna say, "Listen, you got to do a tiebreak." The 1 week that I get all these points, I end up losing because of a tie. But it's just I don't know. Either way, it's cool, man. You don't get prizes, anywhere. Just for playing, guessing scores on your favorite team. Sometimes. So this is all cool. It doesn't matter how you do it, Joe. It's all cool, man. I think it's a great thing to the you get to do here for the fans.
Yeah, I agree, man. It's simple, it's quick, and if you're lucky or you have your way of doing things, your secret picks, it's a great way to win. And I think, like you said, maybe putting not letting it grow to like the super lotto that you're talking about, maybe every 3 weeks, something like that would work. I think the way it's going is great. And like Super said, and like we've alluded to many times, with the prizes we're giving and the simplicity of it, I mean, there really are no complaints. Easy way to win, just go on el3online.com, ETO Quinela, sign up, register, and make your picks. As easy as that, and maybe we'll be talking to you about how to make those great picks. Now, another thing that we do have coming up here at El3 Online is some of our correspondents are actually going to be at a lot of these games. Super, Joe, I know you guys are flying, if I'm not mistaken, to the U.S.-Mexico game in New York. Is that correct?
I'll be there
Actually,
for sure.
we're waiting for Super to give us headshot without the luchador mask, so that way we can submit the credential. But even if he doesn't get approved, he's still gonna go, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'll be there, man.
Yeah, so Super's planning to be at the U.S.-Mexico game, and Samara, Ramon, and I will be at the Argentina versus Mexico game in San Antonio. So, we're gonna definitely be out there looking out for the fans. We're hoping to create a lot of content, take a lot of pictures. So if you see us, make sure you say hello to us. And if you listen to the podcast, just make sure, hey, that you're listening. Tell us that you're listening to the podcast. And actually, if you come up to us and you tell us that you're listening to the podcast, we'll give you, some cool stickers or little swag or things of that nature. So just make sure you shout us out for sure.
Yeah, and actually, if you run into Super out there, you could ask him for his Quinela picks and go the complete opposite way, and maybe wind up on the top of our board that way as well. So
There you
maybe
go.
it's a good thing that they don't let you wear the mask, Super.
Oh man. All right. Well,
Anything you guys are looking ahead to, looking at the schedule for this coming week in Liga MX?
the I'm looking forward to Chivas coming back up, bouncing back up. So let's hope that Necaxa it doesn't come out in one of their good moments.
Yeah, that's a good one. Any games you're looking forward to, Joe, other than seeing how your Chivas do?
Well, isn't America versus who are they playing? I thought that was a big game this weekend. No.
Yeah, it's America Tigres
Yes, there
on
you go.
Saturday.
That's the one that I saw. That's probably the one that I'm looking forward to seeing because those two always go head to head and have really really interesting matchups. And then the other team that I'm not hoping, but like I'm curious to see how they is Cruz Azul. They have that big game in the League's Cup, and then they also have their game over the weekend. But they're coming off obviously of that big win versus your team Atlas, Luis. So
Yeah,
it's
thanks for
going to
bringing
be
it up, Joe.
yeah, sorry, but it's going to be interesting to see if they continue to perform well. And speaking of America and Cruz and Tigres, they're also playing in the semifinals of the League's Cup. But by the time that this is posted, and we will know the result. But it's also going to be interesting to see how that ends up playing out for them, today and then also over the weekend.
Yeah, it's going to be definitely an interesting match, especially coming up the double matchup. I'm kind of interested in the Santos Monterrey game on Friday. I want to see how Santos bounces back and if Monterrey is I think they're kind of on the decline, so we'll see if they pick it up. And another match on Saturday, which I think is going to be good, considering the fact that they're at top of the leaderboard, is going to be that Querétaro León game. Querétaro for number one team on the table right now, and León coming off that win against Chivas. It's going to be interesting to see how they react after that. So we'll see. We have plenty of interesting games to go. Always, if you're looking for the best recaps on it or anything like that, just log on to el3online.com and get your recaps there.
Hey, but really quick before I forget too, for those of you that are going to be out at the LAFC game tomorrow and on Saturday, I'm actually going out to LA tomorrow. I'm taking a flight tomorrow to LA, and I'm going to be out there this weekend as well for the LAFC versus LA Galaxy game for El Tráfico. So make sure that you guys say what's up if you guys see us out there. I wish I could bring Super with me, but lo tienen castigado, so I can't take him.
Come on, man. You got to send me an invite first.
Super is a very important person. You have to submit your request like a month in advance, Joe, and in writing.
Yeah, no, more like
do it
so
twice.
I can give it to my wife.
Yeah. Do it twice because sometimes he doesn't get the email.
Yeah, you have to do it in advance so I can submit it to my wife, man.
No, but seriously, that game between LAFC and LA Galaxy is going to be bonkers, man. I mean, every time these teams have played, it seems as though like it's gotten, just like the intensity at least. Because the first game was just like out of this world. It honestly, to this day, for me, it is the best MLS game I've ever watched, like whether on TV or in person. And it's hard. It's really difficult to top that game. It was a 40 game. Vela scored. Zlatan, like made his that incredible. I mean, it was just like it was literally like a movie script, right? And after
that was crazy.
And after that, the games have been great too, but like it's just hard to live up to that game, to the hype of that first game. But the intensity is still there, and that the teams want to win this game, and it's creating a hell of a rivalry. And I'm really happy for the game, I'm really happy for the league because that's exactly what it needs, And I think the more and more rivalries that get created, the better overall it is just for soccer here in the.
But also,
like you said, I think it's they've been great games. They're rivalry games, and I think the added feature is like even though the Vela kind of plays it off every now and then, I think the pique him and Zlatan have just adds a lot to these games. We get to see a matchup of like the old Lion versus the new Lion, and Vela does something spectacular, Zlatan answers, or Zlatan does something great, and then Vela does something. So, like you said, it's real entertaining, and it's exactly what the league needs, just like you said.
I don't think Zlatan cares actually, to be honest. it's really Zlatan. I mean, Vela definitely plays it off, but typically it's Zlatan who just like goes like, who?
He's just out of this galaxy, man. This guy is, some of the goals that he scores is just impressive, like that one that they were recently. It was going over all over social media this past week where they were remembering his goal when he kind of like just hit it with the outside of his foot on the air and put it into the corner.
Was it his 500th goal?
Yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy, and I don't know. It's just that kind of player, man. And that's what the league has to do. They have to continue trying to make efforts to bring players like that to this league because that's what makes it attractive.
Yeah. No. Yeah, you're right. He's out of this world. He's like it's very few, and it's what's even like more surprising is that he's 38, dude. That's nuts.
I know, and he reminds
Tom Brady of soccer.
He reminds me of when they brought like Cuauhtémoc Blanco. I know he was not the same kind of player, but dude, remember some of the plays that he would do? Also, even like when he would stop the ball with his ass, man. It was like, what the hell was this guy? Or make a pass, with his back, man.
I'm just laughing because Cuauhtémoc and Zlatan in the same sentence is kind of funny.
But I'm just you gotta admit that those are different kind of players that they would show.
Oh yeah. No, I know. Cuauhtémoc was like in a class of his own too. But it's just funny, like thinking about Jorobas and thinking about Zlatan. You know what I mean? Like Zlatan is like a specimen, and Jorobas was just like a good weird player.
He
what
was
is he, the governor of what? The governor of Querétaro?
Morelos. Morelos. Yeah, I don't know
Yeah,
why he chose that
it's
path,
Governor
man.
Jodovas now, man.
Yeah, let's not even talk about that because it's like a waste of talent. He should have stayed in soccer. It's just
Who's
crazy.
this?
Yeah, Cuauhtemoc, man.
Oh,
With
Cuauhtemoc. Yeah, yeah. Oh, okay. I
yeah,
thought you were saying
it's just
waste. All right, I'm done. I'm done. Luis, just close it off, man.
All right, man. Well, with that, any final thoughts, Joe or Supin, to end today's podcast?
Go ahead, Super. I'll let
well,
you. I'll let you close up first.
just once again, just inviting everyone out there to continue to listen to us or start listening to us because this is great, and I don't know, maybe in the future we can have some fans in the show, like you said, Joe, not just for the quiniela, but for just for them to come and hang out with us here, because it's always fun to have new people and to hear other points of view. So
Absolutely.
and keep following us, and you know
You
you'll
know what?
definitely you
What?
won't regret it.
Well, here's the thing. I heard like one of this, influencers or social media influencers. It's Guru. I don't know if you guys know him, Gary Vaynerchuk. Uh, he said supposedly not to ever ask anybody to please follow us. And it was kind of weird how he said that, but it kind of makes sense. And I know that Super, like, said it in a very kind and he means well, but it's kind of like, you know what? People are going to follow you because they want to follow you, right? They're going to follow you because they find you entertaining or they find you funny. If they were to see Super's face, I mean, they would automatically want to follow us, because be like, damn, that guy's funny. At least funny looking, right? But the reality
Uh,
is that we're just having a good time. That's it. And if they want to follow us, it's great. If they want to come on, great too. I'm just really happy that we're all having a great time talking about soccer. We're talking about it in English. I keep on emphasizing that because, again, we need to continue to push and drive, Mexican soccer coverage in English because, a lot of people out there don't have the opportunity to listen to it. So, um, you know, we continue to grow our fan base and people continue to tune in. So I'm really happy again that I was able to chat with you guys for this podcast.
Yeah, like always, it's always a pleasure to be on here, have some fun. How we like to say it, cotorrear a little while we talk about uh, something that is very passionate to us, which is Mexican soccer, La Liga, and Mexican players. And something that me and you enjoy a lot, Joe, is talking smack to Super. So it's always good to be able to do that
That's the best
uh,
part.
on a weekly basis. Just a real quick follow up that I wanted to share with you guys and our listeners. Like you guys know, last week we talked about the tragedy that struck here, my hometown of El Paso, Texas. This week, I wanted to take a moment, though, to let you guys know not the aftermath, but something that happened over the weekend. The El Paso Locomotives, which is our local USL club, played their first home game since the tragedy happened. They actually had a game scheduled for the third. Obviously, as soon as word got out of the severity of what had happened, um, they canceled that game, postponed it. This week was their first home game back. They had a great tribute. They handed out El Paso Strong flags. They had a moment of silence for the victims. One of the things I liked that they did was that they had a local soccer team, the Fusion FC soccer team, which was a team that was directly affected by the attack. Their coaches and the father of one of the players was one of the first victims who was shot outside the Walmart while trying to fundraise for his daughter's team.
Wow.
Um, Fortunately, the man, he was in a coma for a while. He came out of the coma just this week, which is very good news. But the FC invited them. Obviously, while all this was going on, it got emotional. Um, and the girls broke down. They started crying. But it kind of was a good moment in a way because it showed how soccer, how this sport unifies everybody. Not only did the El Paso team go to them and start comforting them, hugging them, and just showing them they were there. But the opposing team, I mean, this is like a few minutes before kickoff, so hats off to the Tacoma team as well. They just went up to the girls as well. They huddled up for about 5-10 minutes while people clapped and showed them that they were there for the support. Once the girls left and took their place in the stands, the whole stadium gave them a standing ovation, which showed them that they're not alone during this difficult time for them. Another
That's very
thing I
cool.
wanted to point out is the irony of things, I guess you could say. This was a hate crime, like we discussed last week, an attack on not only Hispanics but Mexican Americans, if you will. And I thought the great part of that evening was the fact that Edson Partida, who is a Mexican player on loan from Toluca here in El Paso, not only scored the game's first goal, but it was a golazo, man. I don't know if you or Super have gotten a chance to see it, Joe. It was a kind of combination of a tijera and a chilena that he got right past the goalkeeper. And it was just a great moment, not only because it was a goal, but because it was a Mexican scoring the goal, because it was a guy that has come in and just made El Paso his home, like most people who come into this country do. And I just found it was incredibly fitting for after the tragedy that happened and the racial aspect of it to have something like that go down, especially in the city, which, like I told you guys, is very connected to the Mexican community and the Hispanic community. It was really good. It was really great. Side note: the winning goal was scored by a local player as well, so you could tell during his celebration just what it meant to him and what it meant to the city to have it. And it's just a great example of how even through tragedy, soccer is a great uniter. I attended the game with my brother-in-law. To the left of us was a young couple. There was a black gentleman and a white lady. To the right was a Mexican family. So it was just a great moment, not only for the girls and Edson and the team, but the community that everybody just came together to watch the sport we love, man. And I thought that was something noteworthy and worthwhile to talk to, especially since that's what we talk about, soccer and Mexican players.
That's awesome, man. That's really, really, really cool. I'm glad that you know, the town is slowly but surely healing, and one of the things that definitely make people kind of forget about tragedies is sports. So what a touching story, man. I'm really glad that you shared that with us.
All right, and on that note, once again, from us here at El Tri Online, from myself, Luis P., Joe El Jefe Rodriguez, and El Super Mojado, hashtag Beat Super. I'm going to get it going, Super, I swear to God. Thank you guys, and we'll catch you all next week.
All right, man.